Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're really cracking open something quite intense. It's the records from the Minnesota Starvation Experiment, the MSE. Now, if you follow the main Metabolic Revolution podcast, you'll know this stuff. The bioenergetic framework, it's all about how the body manages energy, right? Cellular level. And the MSE, well, it's kind of the ultimate real-world proof of that framework. It's pretty stark.
It really is. And our mission today is to take this data from the 1940s. Remember, this was originally done to figure out how to help concentration camp survivors, not, for some weight loss fad, and use it like a mirror to show the, frankly, dangerous biological damage that happens with chronic energy deficiency.
Yeah, connecting that 80-year-old science directly to today's wellness culture, which, let's be honest, often pushes starvation protocols but calls them, I don't know, healthy habits.
Exactly. It's disguised starvation.
And we're going deep today because the details really, really matter here. This isn't about losing a few pounds. It's about what actually happens to your body, your machine, when it thinks it's in a famine, even if that famine is, self-imposed. At calorie levels that millions are following, especially women, often for months, even years.
Precisely. So we've broken this deep dive down into three sort of critical pillars, all coming straight from those MSE records, which honestly form a big part of the scientific foundation for our work here at Biospark Health.
Oh.
First pillar, the physical destruction, like the shocking reality of actual organ shrinkage.
Yeah, it's intense.
Second, we'll dig into the metabolic crash, why it's not your metabolism being broken, but actually a brilliant, if devastating, survival adaptation. And finally, the third part, we'll unpack the recovery roadmap. It's not linear. It's heavily carbohydrate dependent, and it's the path to, hopefully, real metabolic freedom.
Okay, let's get into it. Part one. The setup is just, it's everything for understanding this. The Minnesota Starvation Experiment, right? 36 guys, healthy, young, psychologically stable, and they were put on 1,570 calories a day for 24 weeks. That's 6 months straight.
6 months.
Yeah.
And the contrast, you absolutely have to stress the contrast with what was normal then.
Right. What were they usually eating?
These were young, active guys. Their baseline was around 3,200 calories a day. It's just standard intake back then, about 3,000 for men, maybe 2,500 for women. So dropping them to 1,570, that wasn't just a small cut. It was roughly a 50% energy deficit, designed deliberately to mimic famine.
And yet, 1,500 calories. You see that number everywhere today. That's often the starting point recommended for a sedentary woman trying to lose weight.
It's identical. The level of biological stress is identical to what these men endured under famine conditions. It's sobering.
So the body's response to this famine wasn't just neat fat loss. It was immediate. It was widespread. It was physiological cannibalization. That's the term.
Right, exactly it. Tissue cannibalization.
And where do the records point first? What was the most obvious destruction?
Well, the first thing, and honestly, maybe the most terrifying, is the destruction of lean mass, muscle tissue. We're always told, you'll mostly burn fat if you eat enough protein.
Yeah.
But these guys lost 33% of their total weight loss from lean tissue, muscle and vital organs. A third. It just completely overturns that myth that protein alone can save your muscle in a big deficit. It can't. Period.
And that includes the most important muscle we have, the heart. The records say the heart physically shrank by 30%. Just let that sink in.
Yeah.
30% smaller.
Your engine, 30% smaller. And the immediate consequence, a proportional drop in stroke volume. How much blood it pumps with each beat. And that translates directly into symptoms people feel right now. That profound chronic fatigue you can't sleep off.
Yeah.
Severe exercise intolerance. Feeling dizzy when you stand up too fast. Postural instability. POTS-like symptoms, even.
That's such a critical link. Your engine's smaller, your body can't get oxygen around efficiently, can't clear waste, so you're exhausted, systemically.
Yeah.
And we often try to fix that with what? Caffeine? Electrolytes?
Right. Band-Aids. When the MSE shows the root cause could literally be the physical shrinking of your heart because it doesn't have enough fuel.
Wow. Okay. And it wasn't just the heart, right? The metabolic powerhouses took a hit, too. The liver.
Oh, the liver. Central command for, everything. Detox, hormones, blood sugar. It shrank to 54% of its normal size.
Over half its size vanished.
Gone. How can an organ with over 500 critical jobs possibly function when it's half its normal size?
It can't. And the records, they mentioned something else disturbing about the liver connected to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD, which is epidemic now.
Yes, and this is where that bioenergetic connection just clicks. The researchers documented fatty infiltration in the shrunken livers. See, when your body is chronically short on energy, specifically glucose, carbs, the liver doesn't have the ATP, the energy currency. It needs to do its main job with fats, which is processing them and exporting them out, packaging them up into VLDL, very low-density lipoproteins, and shipping them off. But if there's no energy for that packaging and shipping process,
the fat just gets stuck in the liver.
Exactly. It's like a traffic jam caused by an energy crisis. The fat piles up in the liver tissue because making and sending out VLDL is, frankly, a lower priority than just keeping the lights on for immediate survival. It strongly suggests that a big driver of modern NAFLD might not be too many calories overall, but chronic deficiency, especially carb deficiency, forcing the liver to just store fat because it can't process it.
Mind-blowing. Okay, what about filtering? Kidneys, fluid balance.
Also compromised. Kidneys shrank to 75% of normal size.
Still a big drop.
Huge. And that 75% meant electrolyte regulation went haywire. The result, they were peeing constantly off and waking up at night, and they had this overwhelming, unquenchable thirst. They were drinking water, but internally they were dehydrated because the kidneys just couldn't manage the fluid and electrolytes properly anymore.
Another classic symptom we hear about all the time, waking up to pee, chugging water all day, still feeling thirsty.
Yep. It could be kidney compromise from underfueling.
And maybe the most, unsettling finding for today is what happened to the immune system.
Oh, the immune system was basically sacrificed on the altar of survival. Completely. The spleen, crucial for defense, filtering blood, dropped to 52% of normal. But the really alarming thing was the thymus gland. It almost completely atrophied, disappeared.
And the thymus is where T cells mature, right? The immune system's soldiers.
Exactly. So thymus atrophies, T-cell production shuts down. The researchers literally called the men walking immune disasters. They were incredibly vulnerable to infections, and recovery from anything took forever.
Okay, let's pivot to the gut, because this is going to hit home for so many people dealing with modern digestive issues, chronic gut problems. The descriptions of the intestinal walls, it's shocking.
It really is. The researchers wrote that the walls became so thin, so transparent, they could literally read print through them.
Read print through them.
Well, think about that. This isn't just like a little irritation. This is extreme wasting away of all the layers, the muscle layer, the mucosal lining, everything. The whole tract was wasting away.
So, okay, if the gut barrier, the intestinal wall, is physically that compromised, that thin, that fragile, we have to seriously question how we usually approach gut healing, don't we? Like, how many cases of leaky gut or SIBO or endless food intolerances are we trying to fix with fancy probiotics or super restrictive diets or killing off bacteria?
When the root problem isn't the bugs or the food necessarily, but the physical structure itself, the organ tissue being destroyed from starvation.
Yeah, because the gut is a huge energy hog.
Massive. It needs constant, enormous energy to maintain those tight junctions, make stomach acid, produce enzymes, move things along, peristalsis. When the body flips a survival switch, it correctly identifies the digestive system as, well, not essential for immediate survival compared to the brain or heart. So it starts shutting it down, dismantling it to conserve resources.
Which brings that client story, Jennifer's story, into such sharp focus. Years of debilitating gut issues, right? Seeing specialist after specialist, reacting to almost everything she ate. And she was only eating, what, 1,300 calories a day?
1,300 calories. She was essentially living the Minnesota starvation experiment without realizing it. Her gut was physically starved. So we didn't initially mess with her supplements or her food list. We focused purely on the energy, gradually, carefully, using that bioenergetic approach, raising her intake from 1,300 up to a maintenance level around 2,400 calories over about 6 months.
And the result?
Her severe bloating, gone. Her SIBO symptoms resolved. Her food reactivities dramatically reduced. Why? Because her gut tissue finally had the energy it needed to repair itself, to maintain its structure, to function properly.
That's incredibly powerful. And it just nails the takeaway from this first part, doesn't it? All those symptoms we often dismiss or normalize when trying to get lean or fix our gut. The hair loss, the constantly cold hands, the brain fog, the irregular cycles. They aren't just annoying side effects. They are measurable, predictable signs that your organs and tissues are being destroyed by a chronic lack of energy.
And we absolutely have to add the psychological side here, too. The mental deterioration these men experienced was profound. Their entire world just shrank down to food. Obsession.
Right.
They developed crippling anxiety, deep depression. Their libido completely vanished. They started showing these manic food behaviors.
Like what?
Hoarding recipes, hoarding spices even, playing with their food, diluting it with water to make it seem like more, cutting it into minuscule pieces to make the tiny meal last longer.
Which sounds exactly like behaviors associated with eating disorders.
It's the definition of food obsession. But it's often blamed on, like, weak willpower. When the MSE shows it's a programmed biological famine response, your brain is just screaming, find food, or we die.
And their ability to think, their personality, that changed too.
Dramatically. They couldn't concentrate, they lost their sense of humor, became emotionally flat, irritable. The researchers documented all of this. It shows that when energy is scarce, your mind, your spirit, they're among the first casualties. Energy scarcity breeds scarcity thinking, physically and mentally.
Okay, so that's the physical and psychological destruction. Let's shift now to the metabolism itself, part 2. Because the biggest myth out there, the one we hear constantly, is my metabolism is broken. I eat so little and I can't lose weight.
Right, and the MSE data just demolishes that idea.
Yeah.
It shows emphatically your metabolism isn't broken, it's adapted brilliantly in a survival sense, too effectively almost.
How much did it adapt? What happened to their BMR, their basal metabolic rate?
It plummeted.
Yeah.
Their BMR, the calories they burned, just lying still, keeping the lights on, dropped from their baseline, all the way down to 958 calories on average.
958 calories. From what, like over 1,500 initially?
Easily. It was about a 40% reduction in their resting energy burn over those 6 months.
40%. That's a massive shutdown, conservation effort.
Massive. The body successfully flipped from being anabolic, building, repairing, to being deeply catabolic, breaking down, conserving, like putting your computer into maximum power-saving mode, only essential functions running.
And that 40% drop, that's the nail in the coffin for the simple calories in, calories out, or CICO model, isn't it?
The final nail. Absolutely. Because think about it. The men were still eating 500 and 580 calories a day. Their BMR, their resting burn, was only 958 calories. So mathematically, on paper, they had a surplus of over 600 calories every day compared to their resting needs.
But they were still losing weight, losing muscle and organ tissue.
Rapidly, they continued to waste away. Which proves, definitively, the body isn't a simple calculator or a bomb calorimeter. It's a complex, adaptive biological system driven by homeostasis.
Yep.
Survival is priority number 1, and it will override any simple math equation.
The body basically decided, nope, I'm not spending those 600 extra calories on repairing tissues or fighting infections. I'm hoarding them. I'm reducing my internal demand even further.
Exactly. It's protecting the core brain and heart, even if it means sacrificing everything else. Peripheral tissues, muscle, immune function, gone.
Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into the biochemistry they documented, specifically the respiratory quotient, RQ. For listeners following the bioenergetic model, RQ is a really key metric.
It's crucial. RQ is simply the ratio of carbon dioxide you produce versus the oxygen you consume. And it tells you directly what fuel your cells are primarily burning and how efficiently they're using oxygen. A healthy metabolism running efficiently on glucose should have an RQ close to 1.0.
And during the starvation phase.
The men's RQ dropped significantly.
Meaning they weren't burning glucose efficiently anymore?
Right. They shifted away from it. They were forced to burn more fat and, importantly, more protein relative to the carbs they were getting. And here's the critical link.
Yeah.
When you burn less glucose efficiently, your body produces much less carbon dioxide.
CO2. Which, as we always discuss on the main show, isn't just waste, it's vital. It's a primary vasodilator.
Correct. CO2 is essential for relaxing and opening up blood vessels. Good vasodilation means good delivery of oxygen and nutrients to all your tissues. So when CO2 production tanks, like it did in the MSE guys, you get vasoconstriction. Blood vessels tighten up.
And that explains.
That explains those classic starvation symptoms perfectly. The perpetually cold hands and feet, the poor recovery after any exertion, the brain fog, that general feeling of sluggishness. Your tissues literally aren't getting enough blood flow because your cells aren't making enough CO2 to keep the pipes open.
Wow. And that poor circulation just feeds back into the problem, right? Less oxygen gets delivered, so cells make even less energy.
It's a vicious, catastrophic feedback loop. And it gets worse. Because efficient metabolism, especially thyroid function, depends on converting inactive T4 thyroid hormone into the active T3 form. That conversion process needs energy. It needs sufficient glucose. And it needs a low-stress hormonal environment.
Which they definitely did not have.
Absolutely not. With RQ dropping and stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline soaring because of the famine signal, that T4 to T3 conversion just stalls out. And that slams the brakes on cellular activity body-wide, which is exactly why their core body temperature drops so low, Metabolism slowed right down.
Okay, let's tackle another modern myth head on. The protein-sparing idea. We hear it all the time. Eat enough protein and you'll keep your muscle while dieting. But the MSE guys ate adequate protein, about 1 gram per kilo, and still lost a ton of lean mass. Why didn't the protein spare their muscle?
Because protein only spares muscle effectively when there's enough overall energy coming in, enough fuel. In a state of chronic energy deficit like the MSE, the body has a much higher priority than keeping your biceps big.
Feeding the brain.
Feeding the brain. The brain demands glucose nonstop. And if you're not eating enough carbohydrates to supply that glucose,
The body has to make it itself.
exactly, through a process called gluconeogenesis, which literally means making new glucose. And what does it make it from? Primarily amino acids, which it gets by breaking down your own tissues, mostly muscle. So even though they were eating protein, that protein was essentially being hijacked, cannibalized, and turned into glucose to keep the brain running. The body was actively sacrificing muscle tissue. The need for brain fuel completely overrode any attempt at protein sparing.
And this leads us to maybe the single most crucial bioenergetic insight from the whole experiment, right? Which macronutrient turned out to be the most important for metabolic recovery and maintenance?
Carbohydrates, not protein, not fat. Carbohydrates were the key.
And why? What makes carbs so critical in this context?
It's multifaceted. First, carbs are inherently protein sparing. If you eat enough carbs, the body doesn't need to break down muscle for gluconeogenesis. Problem solved. Second, carbs provide the glucose needed for that T4 to T3 thyroid conversion. You need carbs for good thyroid function. And third, and this is huge, carbs signal abundance to the body. Eating sufficient carbs tells the system, hey, the famine is over. And that signal directly lowers those catabolic stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, that actively promote tissue breakdown.
That makes so much sense. And we saw this play out perfectly with Rebecca, that client who is deep into the high-protein, low-carb world, eating, 150 grams of protein, but under 50 grams of carbs, stuck at 1,400 calories.
Yep, 1,400 calories, training hard but losing muscle mass. She was a textbook example of the MSE trade-off. Her body was eating her muscles to make glucose for her brain because her carb intake was so low. So when we started her reverse diet, focusing on increasing total calories up to 2,600, but specifically by raising her carbohydrates significantly up to around 200 grams.
What happened?
The muscle loss stopped immediately. Her recovery improved dramatically. Her body composition actually started getting better. More muscle, less fat, even though she was eating 1,200 more calories per day. It wasn't just the calories, it was the type of fuel and the signal of abundance from the carbs. That was the game changer.
Incredible. And connecting this all together, the single best, most accessible way for anyone listening to gauge their metabolic state is temperature, right?
Temperature is it. It's the simplest, most direct proxy for your metabolic rate, for the speed of all those chemical reactions happening in your cells. Every enzyme, every hormone signal, it all depends on operating within a very specific, narrow thermal range. Ideally, 98.2 to 99 degrees Fahrenheit during the day.
So when we see clients like David, that CrossFit athlete, who was doing everything right, but his morning temperature was consistently, 96.4?
That 96.4 reading explained everything. His fatigue, his stalled progress, his poor recovery. At that low temperature, his enzyme function could literally be operating at only 50% efficiency. His perfect diet, his hard training, none of it mattered because his internal engine speed, his metabolic rate, was suppressed by probably 40%, just like the MSE guys. His temperature confirmed that deep metabolic adaptation. He wasn't broken, he was surviving. Barely.
Let's touch quickly on fasting because it's so trendy. The MSE guys ate only 2 meals a day, breakfast and dinner, big gaps with no food.
Yeah, essentially long daily fasts. And the MSE data suggests this actually contributed to the metabolic disaster. Those long periods without any incoming energy just kept the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, constantly elevated, reinforced the famine signal. What the researchers actually found later during recovery was that frequent, regular meals helped stabilize BMR much better than infrequent ones. For someone already metabolically suppressed, prolonged fasting just digs the hole deeper. It screams famine louder.
Which leads into this idea of the maintenance range. It's not a single magic number you have to hit, is it?
Not at all. That's such a restrictive, unhelpful way to think. Maintenance isn't a fixed point. It's a range. And crucially, it's a range you can build and expand over time. When you're suppressed, like David, at 96.4 degrees, maybe your functional maintenance is dangerously low, like 2,200 calories. You eat more, you gain weight easily. The whole goal of metabolic restoration, of reverse dieting, is to systematically, gradually increase the energy input so the body feels safe enough to raise that ceiling. to get you from a shaky 2,200 calorie maintenance up to maybe a robust 3,000 calories where you feel great and don't gain fat easily. You're building metabolic flexibility and resilience.
Building a bigger buffer. Okay, let's move into the final part, part 3, recovery. This is the hopeful part, but it comes with a serious reality check about time, doesn't it?
A huge reality check. Remember, it took the men 58 weeks, that's over a year, to fully recover their physical health and psychological well-being. And that was after only 24 weeks, 6 months of restriction.
So nearly double the time restricting to recover.
At least. That ratio is such a profound lesson in patience for anyone listening who's been dieting for years, maybe decades. You have to adjust your expectations. Recovery isn't quick, and it definitely isn't linear. The MSE proved that. The men had good weeks, bad weeks, periods where they felt better, then worse. Rapid weight changes followed by stalls. It was chaotic. A complex system doesn't just snap back overnight. You have to trust the process, even when the daily data looks confusing or discouraging.
And the very first phase of recovery often throws people off completely. It causes panic, massive water retention, right? Edema.
Yes, universally observed. And it often lasted a long time, like 19 weeks or even more in some cases. We're talking serious water weight gain, 10, 15 pounds sometimes. Puffy face, swollen ankles, just feeling generally waterlogged. Now imagine you've been hyper-focused on the scale, restricting calories, and suddenly you gain 10 pounds in a few weeks. It feels like total failure.
Psychologically devastating. It makes you want to immediately cut calories again.
Exactly. But the crucial reframe, understanding the MSE context, is that this edema is not failure. It's not fat gain. It is essential, critical, physiological healing taking place.
How should someone understand that? Why is the water necessary?
It's the body desperately refilling its depleted stores. When you finally start giving it consistent carbs again, it goes into overdrive replenishing glycogen. Remember, glycogen is stored glucose, and every single gram of glycogen chemically binds about 3 grams of water to itself. So refill glycogen, you retain water. It's physics. Plus, getting enough fuel allows the body to finally regulate electrolytes properly again, which pulls necessary fluid back into the cells where it belongs, hydrating them properly for repair and function.
We saw that so clearly with Patricia, didn't we? She bravely increased her calories and bam, gained 8 pounds in the first month. Caused huge anxiety.
Huge anxiety.
Yeah.
But because we could explain it using the MSE context, look, this is normal, expected. Your body is finally trusting you enough to refill its tanks. This is healing water. She stuck with it. She pushed through that edema phase, and after about 4 months, the water weight normalized, her energy went through the roof, her temperature came up. The temporary water gain was literally the price of admission for long-term metabolic health.
Such an important point. Okay, after the edema phase, what was the next big hurdle? The one that tests your mental resolve long-term.
That would be the overshoot phenomenon.
Overshoot, meaning?
Meaning many of the men, especially the ones who refed more quickly, actually gained more weight, particularly body fat, than they had before the experiment started. The records note some gained as much as 177% more body fat than you'd predict just based on calories.
Whoa, why does the body do that?
It's creating a protective buffer. Think of it as metabolic insurance. The body has just survived what it perceived as a life-threatening famine. Its response is essentially, okay, that was awful. I am not getting caught unprepared like that again. I'm going to become hyper-efficient at storing energy, especially fat, just in case another famine hits.
It learns to store fat more aggressively.
Precisely. The adipose tissue becomes sensitized, primed to store energy, because the environment seems unstable and threatening. It's a deep evolutionary survival drive. Now, the key thing is, this overshoot is temporary, but only if you follow one critical rule.
Don't restrict again.
Do not restrict again. Cutting calories again at this point is the worst thing you can do. It just screams, see? I told you, another famine is coming. Shit. It reinforces the body's fear, makes it cling to fat even harder, and likely leads to even more aggressive fat storage and deeper metabolic suppression next time. You have to consistently provide adequate fuel, ride out that temporary overshoot finds until the body finally learns to trust the abundance is real and stable.
Trust. That word keeps coming up. It takes consistent signaling day after day, week after week, that the threat is over before the body lets go of those famine adaptations.
Exactly. Consistency and patience are non-negotiable.
Okay, so what did work? What was the winning recovery protocol identified by the researchers? Because, again, it completely contradicts modern diet dogma.
The fastest, most stable, and most complete recoveries came from controlled, gradual increases in total calories, with the majority of those extra calories coming from carbohydrates.
Yeah.
The keys to success were abundant carb intake, Regular frequent meals, not intermittent fasting, focusing on quality sleep, and managing stress rigorously. They needed that constant, high-quality fuel to physically rebuild the shrunken organs and coax the BMR back up to normal.
And maybe the most revolutionary finding for us in the bioenergetic world was the power of the simple biomarkers they tracked. Not fancy tests, but
Temperature and pulse rate. The MSc researchers found these were far better indicators of true metabolic restoration than just looking at the scale or body fat percentage. Why? Because temperature and pulse directly reflect real-time cellular energy production, how fast your engine is actually running. We use these daily with clients. They are invaluable.
so what are the targets people should aim for? What signifies real cellular health returning?
For temperature, you want that morning reading, taken right when you wake up, before getting out of bed, to climb consistently above 97.8 degrees Fahrenheit. And then during the day, your mid-morning or afternoon peak should ideally hit between 98.2 and 99 degrees. For resting pulse rate, you want it to settle into a healthy range, usually between 75 and 85 beats per minute. A very low pulse isn't necessarily healthy. It often reflects suppression. When these numbers, temp and pulse, start climbing and stabilizing in those healthy ranges, that's when you know the metabolic engine is truly rebuilding and shifting back towards an anabolic thriving state.
And James's story just perfectly illustrates this whole journey, doesn't it? From metabolic hell back to freedom, following this exact roadmap. 15 years of chronic dieting, stuck eating only 1,300 calories, gaining weight. And that terrifyingly low temperature, 95.8 degrees.
James was the living embodiment of the MSE metabolic adaptation, eating starvation calories, yet gaining weight because his BMR was so incredibly suppressed. His body was in full-on survival mode. But by patiently, gradually implementing the recovery principles, increasing carbs, increasing total calories, monitoring his temperature and pulse, he eventually worked his way up. He reached a stable maintenance intake of 2,600 calories. His temperature normalized consistently in the high 98s.
And the result wasn't just that he could eat more without gaining weight. His body composition totally changed.
Totally changed. He started building muscle again, lost body fat, had energy, all because his system was finally freed from that chronic starvation response. It proves that metabolic freedom really is possible, even after years of suppression.
Which brings us to the final piece, maybe the most important, the psychological recovery. The MSE guys didn't just get their bodies back.
No, and they often reported that regaining their mental and emotional health, being able to think clearly again, feel joy, connect with others, lose the food obsession, was actually the most valuable part of recovery. It's not just about fixing organs. It's about shifting from seeing food as a source of anxiety, guilt, and obsession to seeing it simply as the necessary fuel that gives you the energy to actually live your life, pursue your career, enjoy your relationships.
Moving from food obsession to food as fuel for life.
Exactly. Reclaiming all that brain power that was previously consumed by managing starvation, it's liberation.
Okay, let's wrap up this deep dive. The Minnesota starvation experiment. It's sobering, it's tragic in many ways, but it's also incredibly valuable. It proves beyond any doubt that chronic low-calorie dieting, even at levels considered moderate today, causes measurable physical destruction of your organs, systemic hormonal collapse, and profound metabolic suppression.
But, and this is the crucial but, it also proves that this damage is reversible. And if you zoom out, think about the bigger picture. Choosing to eat enough to consistently fuel your body adequately. It's actually a radical act today. It's almost revolutionary in a culture and an industry that profits so much from keeping people metabolically insecure and stuck in cycles of restriction.
You really don't have to choose between having a body you like aesthetically and having a body that actually functions well, that feels good, that has energy. You can restore both. But that recovery takes courage, real courage. The courage to question everything the diet industry has fed you.
Yeah.
The courage, frankly, to eat more food than might feel comfortable at first. And the courage to actually trust your body, trust its deep wisdom to heal itself if you just give it the consistent resources it needs.
Your body isn't broken. It never was. It was brilliantly adapted, protecting you the only way it knew how during perceived famine. It's been waiting patiently for the signal that it's safe to heal. Once you provide that consistent energy, that safety signal, the recovery revolution can start right now.